Well, it's that time of year again. It's Banlist season. What is going on, YouTube? It's your boy Spanko, and today I'm excited because we're going to be talking about the Banlist. Now, today, the day I'm recording this video, is actually the day some of the other YouTubers dropped the Megatin 2021 opening, and Crossout Designator was just announced. And honestly, I'm really happy that I waited to make this video until Crossout was announced. I mean, it kind of happened by just coincidence, but it's really good because it does shake up the format. It does change what a ban list can look like, in my opinion. So we're in a really good spot right now, and I think, okay, finally, after talking to my Twitch chat, which by the way, if you guys don't follow me on Twitch, make sure to go check out my Twitch. I'm streaming there all the time now. I have so much fun streaming on there. But we had a long conversation about what the ban list can look like. Now that Cross Designator is out, I think some of what we talked about can come to fruition. So this is Spanko's official 2021 October 1st ban list prediction video. So if you guys do enjoy these videos, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more Yu-Gi-Oh content. Now, I don't want to hold you guys up any longer, so with that, let's get right into it. And we're starting off with the band section. All right, so there's a couple things that I wanted to talk about with the band section, and I'm gonna start things off with Drytron. I feel like Drytron is one of those decks that needs to get checked in one way, shape, or form. Now, the reason I say that is because with the inclusion of Crossout Designator, and that's why I said Crossout actually does change the band list up a little bit, is because one of the main cards, or I guess two of the main cards Drytron loses to, is Cycle Reader and Droll. Now they can play Crossout and they won't lose to those cards. So what is really stopping a Drytron player from making a full combo, right? Sometimes an Ash isn't enough, and even if it is, they can just make a Verte Dragoon play. The ban card that I am going to be talking about, and I'll give you guys some explanation, is Eva. Or Eva. You know that card that I'm talking about. So when we were talking about this, and when I was discussing this with a lot of people, we actually came up with three ideas. We came up with Ben 10 ban, Herald of Orange Light to 1, and Eva ban. So the reason we decided to go, or the reason I decided at least to go with Eva ban, is because I feel like Herald of Orange Light, yes, it is a really good card. It's actually stronger than Gamma in a lot of situations, especially in a deck like Drytron, because essentially, even if you do have a hand trap, if your opponent opens the Orange Light, then they pretty much have a Gamma in their hand that they can use at any point, right? Theoretically. So it becomes even more broken when you have something like an Orange Light plus an Eva in your hand. That's disgusting. And the one thing Drytron does really well is the fact that even after they full combo and make this big board on you, what they can do is they can still have 4 or 5 cards in hand, because what they do is they'll dump an Eva probably on their turn throughout their combo to get 2 more cards, and then if they end on a Beatrice, they can detach and send an Eva on your turn with the Beatrice so that they can pretty much add 2 more cards to their hand. So now they've loaded up their board and they have 6 cards in hand, 4 to 6 cards in hand, which is kind of insane. So I don't think Drytron is one of those decks that just taken over the format. I mean, we've seen the last few Remote Duel Invitationals, it's been Tri-Brigade, Zoo Tri-Brigade, but I think Drytron, especially with Crossout coming out, if it is left unchecked, that deck becomes disgusting, because they'll have Orange Light to negate, they'll have Crossout Designated to negate, and everything else is just going to go through. So I think Eva going to 0 is the best place to hit the deck. What it does is it makes the deck playable, but it just makes it so that you can't just search your negates. Eva's just searching an Orange Light is kind of nasty, right? I think Eva going to 0 is the best way to hit the deck. It doesn't stop the deck from being played. However, it does hit, it doesn't even hit the consistency actually. It just hits those end boards from having an extra 4 cards in hand, right? Because even if sometimes you break those boards, somehow, some way you break those boards, they have a full hand to play with next turn, which I don't think is fair, right? A lot of decks that splatter out their hands, especially if you think of old school Dragon Link, right? Old school Dragon Link would make all these negates, but they would end on a maybe 1 card in hand, right? But where Drytron, you can make all these negates and you can put this board out and then end on 6 cards in hand, which is crazy, right? So Eva to 0. Now the other card, the second card that we are banning in today's prediction video, I guess we could say, is Verte Anaconda.
Oh, snag.
Now this was a highly debated card, and I was kind of like, does it need to get hit? Does it need to get checked? I think Verte needs to go to 0. Now, it's not Dragoon, in my opinion, that is the problem. Don't get me wrong, I think Dragoon is a crazy card, and sometimes just making a Dragoon is enough to win you a game, which is kind of busted. However, I think one of the biggest issues with Dragoon is that it's splashable in any deck, and I think Konami didn't want that to happen on original release, or when they originally made the card, because it is obviously supposed to be Dark Magician, Red Eye support. Now, obviously, with something like Verte, you can literally throw it into any deck, and then now if you have, actually, we were just talking about Drytron, right? If you think about Drytron, if some way you stop their combo, they just make Verte Dragoon, right? And Verte Dragoon has pretty much become a backup option for decks like Drytron, right? It's like, hey, I'm gonna full combo you. If you stop my combo somehow, I'll make Verte Dragoon, right? So that's why I think Verte needs to go. I do not think Dragoon needs to go. So if you are a Guru player, get happy because you can still play Dragoon and Guru. You're just going to play 3 Red Eyes Fusion anyways. So you can still play Dragoon. Decks that really want to commit to that package will end up playing 3 Red Eyes Fusion, will end up playing obviously the Dark Magician, the Red Eyes, and the Dragoon. So don't get me wrong. If you're really committed to that, then it'll happen. But what I'm just trying to say is that it shouldn't be fair for Verte to just be able to make it in any deck as a backup plan. On top of that, if any other fusion card in the future were to come out that is just as powerful as Dragoon and very powerful, like in a sense of it is meta breaking or meta changing, then Verte becomes the issue. Right? It's not necessarily the Dragoon. If they ban the Dragoon and Verte is still around, sure, it might not see play right now, but we're getting that new Destiny Hero fusion monster that eventually could see play with Verte in any random deck. Do you know what I'm trying to say? So that's why I'm trying to say I think Verte needs to go. I don't think the fusion monster itself needs to go. I think Verte is the card that causes all these problems and causes all this potential damage, right? So I kind of went off there on the ban, but that's the only 2 cards I have in the ban section for this prediction video. Okay, so moving on to the limited section, I only have 2 cards in here as well. And if you're a Pendulum player, get happy because I think Magispector Unicorn Kirin should come back to 1. I think this card in the metagame today will not change the metagame enough where Pendulum is going to be super relevant. Now I'm going to have a discussion video about this in another video because I thought about it and actually we're talking about it on stream. Shout out to Bear who actually kind of gave me this idea. But pretty much what I wanted to say with the Pendulum stuff is I don't think we're going to get Electromite back. I don't think we're going to get Electromite back for a very long time. And the only reason I say that is because, again, we'll discuss this in another video, but long story short, if Electromite comes back, every Pendulum deck is going to use Electromite, and then Konami has to make Pendulum support with Electromite in mind, which is not good for the company. And again, we'll get into that discussion in another video, but I don't think Electromite could come back. However, Kirin coming back to 1 I think is very reasonable. It's one of those cards that, yes, it's an interruption on summon, but that's really all it is. It's not by any means broken. It's not one of those cards that you can just pen summon every single turn like you could before. I mean, you technically still can, but it's in the sense of like, oh, you can't just have like in the extra like a bunch of Pendulum monsters and then spam your board, right? So that's why I think Kirin coming back to 1 is very reasonable. Now the next card that I want to talk about is Fire Formation Tenki. I think Fire Formation Tenki should go to 1 on the ban list. And the reason I say that, okay, is because if you look at the tops recently, Tri-Brigade Zodiac has been one of the best decks in the format. It's won, I think, the last 2 invitationals at this point. Definitely one, I know it won the North American one, I think it won the Latin American one as well. With that in mind, I noticed that the pure Tri-Brigade variants or other Tri-Brigade variants aren't getting as much spotlight as the Zoo variants are. So when I say that, it's because I think the Tri-Brigade cards themselves don't need to be hit. Now there's been a lot of arguments about Revolt maybe going to 1. I don't think Revolt going to 1 is actually enough. And the reason I say that is 1, because we have Bear Brom to search it. 2, if Revolt does go to 1, I know next month sometime the Synchro Storm set is coming out, which gives you a bunch of Lyrilusk support, which makes the Tri-Brigade deck just become Tri-Brigade Lyrilusk, and then you're just going to be playing Bird Up again, right? So I don't think Revolt to 1 is actually really the best option for hitting Tri-Brigade. I think Tenki to 1 is where you want to go, and the reason I say that is because if Tenki's at 1, you could still potentially play pure Tri-Brigade, and I think I would still be playing pure Tri-Brigade. Tenki to 1 doesn't hurt the pure build too much, even though I know it kind of sucks because you can't search the Fractal, but I mean, like, it's really good in the Zoo variants, because let's say you open your Zoo monster and you open a Tenki, now you can search a Fractal. If you open your Fractal and you open a Tenki, you can search your Zoo monster. If you open Tenki plus Barrage, you're just huge, right? So it becomes really difficult for your opponent to outplay or play around those kind of hands, because it's like, hey, am I going to stop your Tenki and or your Fractal or your Tri-Brigade engine, or do I stop your Zoo engine, right? It becomes really one of those things where, okay, if I Fractal and you go Asher and I don't have a response or whatever, okay, I'll just go Barrage, or I'll go Tenki, search my Zodiac like Rat, summon Rat, and then full combo you anyways, right? So it's kind of one of those things where I feel like what Tenki does if it goes to 1 is it stops the Zoo variants from being as powerful as they really are, but the pure variants will still be playable, and I think that's the best way to hit the deck. I think that's the best way to control the meta, and I think that's really the best way to hit Tri-Brigade. I think any other hit doesn't really make sense. Like, what are the other hits? Like, Revolt to 1 is an option, I guess, but what are you going to do, Fractal to 1? I'll still play the Zoo variant. I don't care if Fractal's at 1. If I still have triple Tenki, I don't care if Zoo Fractal's at 1. What are you going to hit, Nerval to 1? I mean, they could potentially hit Nerval to 1, but really that's just awkward, you know what I mean? I don't think Konami's going to do that. I think Tenki is the thing that makes the most sense to get hit to 1. Now for the semi-limited section, there's only one card, and I'm going to bring it up real quick, and that's Mind Control. The reason I only said there's only one card, and I think Mind Control is the only card that can come back to 2, is Konami here in the TCG doesn't like to hit cards to 2. I think the only 2 cards in the semi-limited section right now are Malicious and Double Iris. Konami TCG just has a weird, like, thing about cards being at 2. They don't really like it. So I don't think there's a lot of cards that deserve to go to 2 in my opinion. I think Mind Control is one of those ones that can come back from 1 to 2. The only reason I say that is because I don't think Konami is going to want to like go from 1 to 3 right away. But I think Mind Control coming back to 2 makes it so that going second decks have another option of a card that they can play and feel a little bit more confident, right? The OCG just actually put Mind Control back to 3. I don't think we're going to get back to 3, but Bit being at 2 is really, really cool because you'll see some going second decks start to creep up again with Mind Control, just being more easier accessible in your deck with it being at 2, right? Yeah, that makes sense, right? Yeah. Okay, now for the unlimited section, there's only 2 cards I want to talk about. One is going to be a little bit controversial and one I don't think is. The first one I'm going to talk about is Dynamite Knight, the True Draco Slayer. I forget the name, but pretty much the True Draco card. I don't think this card coming back to 3 really does anything for the deck. Without Masterpiece, they don't really have a real win condition. So I think True Draco can get the Dynamite Knight back. It is one of their best cards outside of the Masterpiece because of course it does search their traps, but the deck still has its inherent flaws. Diagram is still going to be at 1 and Masterpiece is still going to be banned. So I think this card can just come back. I don't think there's much of an argument. The second card I want to talk about, and you guys can get into this in the comment section, and I want to hear what you guys think about this, and I believe this could really, really be happening, is because Crossout Designator just came out, and that's Max C to 3. Now, okay, before you guys say anything, please just hear me out. Max C cannot be at 1 or it cannot be at 2. It has to be at 3 because at 3 it makes it so that you can draw it and I can draw it. You as opponent player and me as me, right? So it makes it a lot more fair. It being at 1 makes no sense because if I'm just a Saki player and I open Max C and you don't, I'm going to win the duel, right? So I don't think that's going to be the play. I think they have to bring it back to 3. It's going to slow the game down. And actually, the reason I want to bring this up is because a few months ago, actually a while ago, maybe like 6 months ago-ish, I talked about Max C potentially coming back if Crossout Designator comes out. Specifically if Crossout Designator comes out. And the reason I said that is because I feel like a lot of this format and a lot of the game recently has been, if I go first and I make my first turn board, it becomes an uphill battle for any of my opposing players, right? If I'm playing Tri Brigade and I set up my first turn combo with Apollo, with like potentially the Revolt set, potentially other trap card set, potentially hand traps, it makes it really hard for my opponent to play. If I play Drytron and I make my full combo, it makes it really hard for my opponent to play. I think Crossout Designator, what it does is it makes this balance of if Max C comes back, you can stop the Maxi. So one of the arguments that I like to use, and it's a really good argument in my opinion, is the fact that now you have a bunch of outs to Maxi. You have Call by the Grave, you have Ash, and you also have Crossout Designator. Now, the other argument on the other side of that is, oh, but then you're going to have to use your negate on the Maxi, and then now my opponent can activate all their other cards, you know, freely, right? Okay, true. I don't disagree. That's not wrong. But the other reason I think Max C could come back is because I don't think there's any decks right now that if you Max C me and I kind of just stop or I make a minimal board, then I don't see my opponent, depending on what deck you're playing, being able to OTK you and being able to just flat out beat you. Also, the odds of you having the Max C is also very high, which means now it becomes a lot more of an interactive game state. And if you do have something like Crossout Designator, and that's also why I said that Crossout Designator at the beginning of the video was very important to this ban list, because I don't think Max C can come back if there's no Crossout. But just specifically because we have Crossout, you know, there's going to be funny situations where I'm going to go like Max C and my opponent goes Crossout and I have another Crossout in my hand, so I'll just go, okay, I'll go Crossout. So, you know, there's just a lot of different ways that this can be played out, and I don't know, I just think Max C is one of those things that's very controversial. I'm a big fan of it coming back to 3, especially with Crossout being out. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. I know I'm gonna get a lot of hate in the comments for saying Max C should come back to 3. I'm just saying it's an option. It's an option, all right? Let me know what you guys think. If you guys have any other suggestions or ideas for the ban list, let me know in the comment section down below. I love to hear what you guys have to say. And I think that's really it. I just went on for the last like 10, 12, 15 minutes, whatever it is. Just, I guess, talking to you guys. But yeah, I'm done. Let me know in the comment section what you guys think. If you guys enjoyed the video, make sure to like, subscribe. And with that, Spanko signing out. Peace.
Get up, we want you to get on your feet.